All right, welcome everybody. Good afternoon for those of you on East Coast time, and good morning for everybody else west of the Eastern time zone. I'm Keith Friedenberg, the Chief Operating and Innovation Officer at CHIME, and I'm absolutely thrilled to be here with you all and with our speakers and our facilitators to talk a little bit more about the two exciting programs that we have coming up next month at St. Luke's Health System in Boise, Idaho. So welcome to Innovation is an Organizational Vital Sign. We're going to spend some time today talking about the two CHIME innovation programs coming up later next month. We're going to spend most of our time actually focused on the Strategy and Frameworks workshop. This workshop is intended to be very pragmatic, very practical. It's going to be all about rolling your sleeves up and getting a little dirty, a little messy into the innovation space. So we're excited to have everybody here with us. And with that, time is short. So we're going to go ahead and get started. And we're going to do that by introducing our two dynamic and amazing leaders and speakers. Todd Dunn is the Vice President of Innovation at HRM Health, and also somebody that I call a friend. Todd, welcome and thank you for joining us. And of course, Molly Zimmer, who's the Program Manager for the Innovation Center of Excellence at St. Luke's Health System. Molly, welcome to you as well. Thank you for joining us. Molly and Todd also have the distinction of being the facilitators for the Strategy and Frameworks workshop that's taking place next month on the St. Luke's Health System campus. Before we really jump in, I know we've got some great questions. We want to save some time at the end if we can for any questions from the audience. A special shout out and thanks to Reed Steffen, the Vice President and CIO at St. Luke's Health System, for reaching out and inviting this opportunity to collaborate with him, with Molly, with Todd, and for hosting us on the campus at St. Luke's Health System. So big thanks to Reed for the role he's played in that. With that, I want to jump into some questions. As we were preparing for this webinar and talking about, we get excited when we talk about the workshop. And it's really difficult to communicate some of that excitement and some of what we're planning to share at the workshop in written word. Todd, I want to start with the title for this webinar because it's really interesting. Yeah. The title is Innovation is an Organizational Vital Sign. Yeah. What do you mean by that? Because Todd came up with this title for this webinar today. So what do you mean by that? And how is it applicable to the workshop coming up next month?
Thanks for the question, Keith. In my opinion, if you don't have an innovation system, you're basically embracing the status quo. And the reason that I call it a vital sign is if you aren't innovating in a system within a framework, language, tools, and methods that we've talked about, you're almost predicting the health of your organization in the absence of it. Because without an innovation system, you don't drive efficiency, innovation at scale the way you need to, and you certainly aren't innovating or renovating your business models. And the way that it connects to the workshop, Keith, is the workshop is exactly and explicitly designed around that system of a language, tools and methods that systems can use to drive their own innovation efforts.
Yeah. Molly, we're going to go to you next on the next question. So a little background, a little setup for Molly in this question for those of you who are with us. So Reed Steffen, the VP and CIO at St. Luke's Health System, actually came to the very first offering of this workshop 3 years ago. Yeah. And my understanding is St. Luke's has been on a journey, their own innovation journey ever since. Molly, I know you've been part of that journey as well in the last 18 months or so. Can you tell us a little bit about how Reed's participation in that workshop connects back to the journey and where St. Luke's Health System is at today from an innovation perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think his experience really connects to what Todd was just describing as well, with having a system and a toolkit and a methodology. So first of all, he's a phenomenal leader, and he does a lot of things really well. But one of the best things I think he does is sift through the thousands of ideas that executives, are kind of bombarded with, and really does a good job identifying those that fill a gap, fill a need, and really can add value to the organization. So when he attended that workshop that Todd facilitated, he can tell the story so much better than me, but he can he really was inspired by the way that Todd presented it. And that's a really similar structure that we're doing at this workshop. Todd is able to really break down these concepts and make them very practical and tangible and even like really memorable. So Todd is kind of the king of like the one-liner, and these things that really stick with you. So Reed came back just really inspired and really feeling like there were some practical ways that we could implement this at St. Luke's. I know myself, and I'm sure several other people had Clayton Christensen competing against luck and business model generation sitting on our desk a couple weeks later, because those are some of the foundational things that I know have formed Todd's mindset around innovation. And we really just started rolling. So Todd came to St. Luke's, did a couple of workshops, and everyone who attended was pretty much on fire. A couple of things that really stand out to me that really had legs without really even putting any structure in place. One of the biggest ones was this concept of getting out of the building. And Todd tells a great story about going to Cambodia, and that really resonated in our IT department. Just the concept of going and meeting the customer where they are, watching what they're doing, what are they struggling with, what are their functional, social, emotional needs. So things like that, those little bits that you can just bring and implement even without hardly any effort, just telling the story, are huge. So that's kind of how we got started.
Thank you, Molly. A quick follow-up on that. So Reed attended this workshop, which was just expertly delivered by Todd, of course. And I mean that in all honesty. Todd is an amazing facilitator on these innovation concepts. If you come to this workshop, you're going to learn so much. So Reed was inspired. He brought back some of these concepts, and we'll talk to Todd in a moment about, you know, the day one practicality of what we teach at this workshop. But you don't start at the enterprise level right away, right, Molly? This is a journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so, I mean, so I gave you one example of the concept of getting out of the building, just going and seeing what our customers are struggling with. But it's those little simple practices that kind of slowly permeate our mindset and help us become less certain about our solutions and more curious, which then leads to this realization that all of our assumptions are based, or all of our solutions are based on assumptions that have to be tested, which leads to better, more refined outcomes. So the way that we have, I mean, it's been a lot of learning. So it's not like it's been, you know, without bumps, but the way that we've gone about this has really been to kind of slowly and quietly build those tiny little simple practices and get really good and get our reps in and get really good at understanding how we can apply those to a variety of business needs across the enterprise. So we're really working on building trust, meeting our other departments where they are in the work they're already doing, not adding another thing to their plate, but meeting them where they are and showing them how even just a little piece of the innovation framework can help them refine what they're doing and help lead them to a better outcome than they would have if they just all sat in a room and, you know, decided what they should do and moved on. So
yeah. Thanks, Molly. It's a great segue to the next question I'd like to ask of you, Todd. You were the facilitator at this 2019 workshop that we've referenced already. And in fact, you took members of the CHIME leadership team through a similar workshop experience. And I know that our team just learned so much in the short time that we were able to spend with you. We've talked a lot about the practicality of this workshop, and you've referenced it's got to be pragmatic innovation, right? This isn't about coming and learning what is the newest, hottest G-Wizatron out there you can buy and suddenly innovate your entire health system. That's not what this is about. Can you tell us what your approach with this workshop looks like?
Keith, you nailed it. In my opinion and experience, innovation exists to do one thing, and that is to lead to better company performance for the people who hire that company. So it's always been within our design thinking that, and I think you brought it up earlier, let's say the conference goes Thursday and Friday, which it doesn't, but what are you going to do when you go back to the office on Monday? And so what we've really worked to do is to make the concepts and the tools within reach to ignite somebody to be able to go do something, because the tool in the guide will you can just go do it. And it's hard only because you just got to decide to go do it, and you've got to be willing to learn. So I've always had this pragmatic way of thinking about innovation. And when we think about language, Keith, in healthcare, we try to standardize language as much as we can.
Yeah, as much as possible, right?
Part of the problem in innovation is, take one word, for instance, take one word, business model. Everybody uses business model. And if you ask 100 people in a conference to write down their definition, you'll get 100 definitions, maybe 102. And that's a problem, because if everybody doesn't understand the concept in the same way and the tool the same way, they don't work well together. Contrast that to asking someone to draw a pain scale. Almost everyone can draw a pain scale. It is a communication object. And what we work to do, Keith, and I think CHIME works very hard to do this, is to organize the language tools and methods so that people feel they have the capability. I think everybody has the passion. Everybody does. And it's about using those tools to solve the business model struggles or the process struggles that an organization has to help it run more effectively. And I would propose, there's never been a more important time in healthcare to figure out an innovation system. It's no longer nice to have. I would argue it's as vital of a function as finance, HR, marketing, you name it. You have to do it to get better, and you have to get better to thrive and survive in the crazy world we live in.
Yeah, and I'm sure we're all reading the same articles out there. You know, health systems are struggling financially. It's a really, really difficult time. You are both leaders in your organizations. I'm sure you're asked all the time to do more with less, right?
Oh yeah.
And how do you do that if you aren't practicing innovation concepts? It's incredibly difficult already, right? Which gets back to this concept. Yeah. Boy, if you aren't already learning about these models and frameworks that are available to you and working on developing and instilling that discipline, it's just going to get harder. And I think, Todd, you said it really well the other day when we were prepping for this. If you don't do it, you're just going to continue to struggle, right?
Yeah, I argue the reason I say it's a vital signs predict things. And when the vitals aren't good, the outcomes typically aren't good. And if your vitals aren't good, then you've got to diagnose and prescribe something different. And I would argue that a systematic way of making impact through innovation is the right prescription today. It just is.
Yeah, thanks, Todd. Molly, I want to go back to you. Todd, you mentioned, CHIME innovation exists for a couple of reasons. One is to try and move us closer to a common language around innovation. That being said, innovation means something different to just about everybody. You ask, 100 people the innovation question, you get 100 different answers. Some are far further along in practicing innovation. Some are just getting started or wanting to understand how to get started. Molly, your organization has been on this journey for a while. Can you speak to maybe some of the challenges, but also some of the opportunities that you've seen and maybe tapped into as you've been on the journey at St. Luke's Health System?
Great question.
Yeah, it's a great question. Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a few that come to mind. Obviously, cultivating the language is actually harder than you think. I mean, we can have our own definitions that we think are great, but then likely a lot of those words might be used in different ways across the organization. So that's one of the challenges for sure. And then another one is kind of along those lines, like navigating silos, navigating the change management of introducing something that might seem new. I mean, it's new concepts, but that people might interpret as adding more to their plate, and helping people through seeing that it's actually not adding more to your plates, and it's going to make sure that you have better solutions than you do present day. So one big way that we've really tried to tackle all of those things, I have a wonderful team member, Lexi Jensen, and when she joined the team about 6 months ago, we spent a whole bunch of time just in discovery calls with any potential partner and even anyone who we thought might, maybe not want to partner, might be a little resistant. And so we really spent tons of time working within our own culture. And Todd and I have had a couple conversations about this, and one of his one-liners that he said that really stuck with me is to use the culture to change the culture. And I think that's something we both have some experience doing. And that's something that I think we can give a lot of guidance on what to do and what not to do in the workshop. And so really just, again, reaching out, trying to understand other people's struggles, trying to understand where you might be able to actually come in and fill a gap or relieve a pain for another department and create a friend. Those are the ways that we've been going about kind of navigating those silos. And then also it has already paid off in terms of building trust. We have a whole bunch of different groups like performance improvement, and we have a whole bunch of other little smaller kind of more niche groups that do similar things with targeted audiences within our organization. And we call that our improvement ecosystem. And so we spent a lot of time with them, and we're really working on a common language that we can all use and really understanding the distinction between the work we do, then also landing on some terms that we can socialize across the organization.
Yeah, really great stuff. I've got a part two to this question, Molly, if I can. Just reflecting on the first time we met, we had a conversation with you, and Reed was there with us, and it was just sort of a discovery opportunity. Reed was like, we've been on this journey and we'd love to share with others, right? Tell us sort of why you're excited to participate in this workshop, and what's the opportunity for you in working with colleagues who come?
Yeah, that's great. Kind of connecting it all back together. Yeah. So as inspiring as Todd's presentation is, you still do have to come back and do some real work. So we had, we were fast tracked in terms of we already had a set of tools that we kind of use that were foundational that Todd introduced, but then we had to figure out, well, how do we actually make this our own? And one of the big things was, we had COVID, so kind of, we had a big long pause on this, but one of the things that absolutely has accelerated the process has been just identifying a person whose job that's me, whose job it is to wake up in the morning and think about innovation at St. Luke's and care about it and love it. And once we did that, and I kind of got rolling, that's step one. So like Todd said, it needs to be an actual function, right? So once we got rolling with that, it was my job then to take those concepts and actually figure out how do we make that work within our organization. So really practical things like, how do we present this? Putting together, simple, right? Putting together tools and even visuals that are based on those concepts, but that we know will resonate within our organization. And how do we present this? How do we break it apart in chunks that make sense? And then allow ourselves the room to test those assumptions first before we move on to something else. So I feel like the reason I was so excited to kind of share this with other people is I bet we could cut, maybe a year. I don't know the exact amount of time, but if I would have started with kind of what we've built now, it would have, gotten us a lot further. So there's a lot of little breadcrumbs that you can pick up from other people and tailor it to your organization. You don't have to do it all from scratch.
Yeah, thank you, Molly. One of the best things that I feel like we can do as an organization, CHIME, is connect peers and colleagues together to accelerate getting to solutions, to accelerate innovation, whatever it is. And I just remember you and Reed was just so passionate about sharing your journey with others. If it can shave a week or 8 months or 12 months off somebody else's journey, right? Learning and, internet's there we go. Learning from you and the journey that you've been on to accelerate somebody else's experience is really what it's all about. By the way, congratulations. St. Luke's Health System recently launched their own innovation center, I believe. Yeah. So, and you're doing some really exciting things. And that didn't happen on day one. It didn't happen when Reed got back in 2019 from that workshop, but it can happen, which is really part of this journey, which is pretty phenomenal. Believe it or not, we're already running a bit short on time. Really just another question for and then we want to save time for anybody at the workshop or the Innovation Summit. We'll talk about that in a moment. The framework, the Strategy and Frameworks Workshop is open to basically all CHIME stakeholders. If you're a CHIME member, you're a team member of a CHIME member, you're a CHIME Foundation firm executive. This is about helping the industry move forward, helping the industry move closer to a more common language around innovation and accelerating innovation and getting to solutions faster. In the time that we do have left, Todd, we'll start with you and then I'll let you sort of close us up.
Yeah.
Speak to if there's somebody out there who's watching this webinar now, or maybe watches it later, and they're thinking, should I go to this? Should I not?
Yeah.
Why should somebody invest their time and energy to come join us at St. Luke's in Boise and spend a couple of days with us at this workshop?
It's going to make your life easier. There's no question in my mind that organizations are struggling with this. And I hope I say it politely, but between St. Luke's and my experience, there's 15 years of doing this work. I did it at GE, at Intermountain. I've had the privilege of doing it at Atrium, and we're going to share things that we've done in the container of a provider system to make this work. And so you don't have to go read all the books to get started. Just come to the workshop and we'll get you ignited and started in a way that will save you so much time and hassle that you'll just be glad you did it, because we're kind of handing you years and years of experience in a way to get started that would be very difficult to find on your own. As someone who's read over 100 books on this and been mentored by a lot of people like Molly, I just want to share it, help people. And I think that will save you a lot of time and get you on a great direction. And not to mention, it's going to help your company.
Thanks very much, Todd. Molly, any similar thoughts?
That was pretty good, but I guess I would also add, maybe more frivolously, that Todd and I are also very fun people that you would get to hang out with. And we're also very funny. So I think you would have a great time also, in addition to really helping fill that gap for your company. But yeah, I think the biggest thing is just, this is exciting work. It ignites your organization. I've had all kinds of people reach out to me from inside and outside St. Luke's that are like, innovation, I want to be part of it. So it's also like in this time where we're working to retain employees, it is an exciting, almost extra for people to have the opportunity to be involved in this work. And the last thing I would say, bringing it all together, Todd mentioned he's got extensive experience. And then I've got, some experience. I've got a couple years. And I actually think that's a really beautiful combination, because between the two of us, we're probably going to really be able to meet participants where they are on their journey. And really provide some tailored help with how to implement it when they get back home.
Thank you, Todd and Molly, both for that insight. Thank you also for participating in the webinar today and for being our facilitators next month. Just a reminder, the Strategy and Frameworks Workshop takes place on the campus at St. Luke's Health System in Boise, Idaho, September 20th and 21st. And if you register for that workshop, and we really hope you do, come and learn with us, start your journey with us, whether you're just getting started or you're somewhere down the advanced sort of side of the spectrum here. There's something for everybody to learn and take away. But if you register for the Strategy and Frameworks Workshop, you can stay for a couple of days, add some value to your participation for the CHIME Innovation Summit, which takes place on the 22nd and 23rd. With that, I just want to, again, conclude. We'll see if we've got a couple of minutes here for questions. Huge thank you to Molly and Todd for joining us. Special shout out again to Reed Staffen for being such an amazing CHIME member and leader, and for engaging CHIME in this opportunity. We're so grateful to have the opportunity to work with you. I want to thank our sponsor, Remedy Health Solutions, has been supporting and sponsoring CHIME innovation programs for several years now. We really, really appreciate their support. We look forward to seeing everybody come join us in Boise next month. Let's see, I'm not seeing any questions here. If not, we probably answered them all. Thank you again, Todd, Molly. I'm sure we'll talk soon. I look forward to seeing you next month to kick off the Strategy and Frameworks Workshop, and we hope to see everyone there. Take care all.
See you soon. Thanks for the dialogue, everyone.
Thanks much.
Thank you.
Thank you.